Welcome back to Stay in Your Lane. I'm your host, John Maley, Triple T Transport, and I've got two special guests today. This subject is very passionate, I think, for most of us in our industry. We're going to be talking about alternative fuels, where the industry is, where we're headed, what's realistic. So I reached out to the American Trucking Association, and today we have Jacqueline Gelb and Paul Ruiz.
Hello.
Hey there.
Very good. So I think everyone gets a little edgy, and has their own maybe personal perspective on what is the right thing for the trucks to be doing and what's environmentally intelligent. And, I think electric cars have made somewhat of an impact in the car industry, but the trucking industry is going to vary, I think, from that. And what we're looking at with all the alternative options, the electric hybrid, natural gas, biodiesel, propane, hydrogen, I think that it's all hands on deck looking for options in our industry. But what, I want to try and understand from you guys. So you guys work and collaborate with a group there at the ATA, and
Correct.
try and tell our listeners what you do on a day in, day out basis as far as energy.
Sure, absolutely. So thanks for having us here. We're happy to be with you and definitely with your listeners. It's a hot topic in our industry, and it's a hot topic that's sitting with governments as well, even states and federal governments, and even abroad as well as we try to figure out what's the right way in the future of transportation in this industry. Where Paul and I sit, we're policy wonks, to say the least, is probably the best way to describe us. But we are taking information of what are trucks OEMs, what are they investing in, where do they see the future of this industry going. We're talking to our members who are the fleets of what technology are they adopting, where do they see use cases successful and non-successful here of how to make this transition, what's working, what's not. And it's also talking to policymakers and regulators of really being the voice for the industry here, getting them smart on how this industry operates, how the industry makes purchasing decisions, how technology gets adopted in our space, but also of what's needed when we go and we make those investments as well. Trucking is the backbone of the country. It's the most important thing. It's touched everyone's lives, especially after the pandemic here, that everyone loves getting their Amazon package, especially on time. That's all moved by trucking. And so trucking really does move America here. So we want to make sure that we have successful regulations and successful policies that are going to work for our industry.
Yeah, I mean, I would only add to that that there's been a lot of change in our industry and a lot of increased attention to energy and environmental issues. In part, that has happened really with our drivers, our fleet managers, our members, not fully aware of how the conversation is changing in Washington, D.C., and in states across the country. Past few regulatory rounds with EPA, we've relied on technologies that our industry has largely used, and we've phased in carbon reduction strategies. Now we're looking at a framework that wants to transition our industry into power sources that are still proving themselves out in the fleet context. And really what Jacqueline and I often need are those case studies, how fleets use different technologies, where it's appropriate. Often we're talking about how the heavy duty segment is different than light duty. Frequently a lot of the lawmakers on Capitol Hill think that they're the same, and they're not. The set of decisions that fleet managers make when they're thinking about ordering a vehicle, the cycle by which they are going to use that vehicle, all the considerations regarding the purchase price and what they need to operate and maintain that vehicle, that is all different than the light duty segment, which tends to be a lot more of an emotional choice and a very different use case. And you alluded to it a little bit ago, John, but we were very happy that Andrew Boyle presented up on Capitol Hill, very recently, gave and shared that fleet perspective.
You made a statement there that caught my attention when you said emotional in the light duty. Our industry, I think everyone wants to be conscious and be intelligent and do what's right, right? I think if I just draw a generic generalization over all the truck drivers in the United States, I'm going to tell you after 29 years of working with truck drivers on a daily, weekly, intimate level, right? I'm going to tell you that over 8 out of 10 are phenomenal people. So, unless you're walking in your shower shoes across the parking lot in Minneapolis to go in to take a shower to hear, driver number 82, your shower is now ready, in 8 inches of snow and 12 degrees, think about what the job that we're asking these people to do, on top of how we equip them to be successful from an equipment perspective. In the United States, less than 10% of equipment is owned by trucking companies with more than 5 trucks. So 90% of our industry or more at any given time are 1 to 5 trucking companies, right? So when you, Jacqueline, spoke about regulatory changes in the activity being so high, I don't know that most people in the United States understand that 9 out of 10 or more trucking companies have 1 to 5 trucks. To drive a change in the industry that could be a failure is catastrophic.
Absolutely. That is very much of the conversations that we do have, that Paul and I have from sitting in our seats with regulators and policymakers, because he made an important comment there that when they think of trucks, they think of lumping them in an automotive, and just on sheer size of the market, light duty, usually is what they're thinking of. They think manufacturing is done the same way. They think the supply base, they think the purchasing decisions, and even the performance requirements are the same. It's a completely different thing for us as the truck industry. It's completely different size. It's a completely different way of how our fleets and our members, how their business is set up. And when you go and you make a decision on when to purchase a new truck, that's a business decision. That's a capital investment that you're making. And the requirements that you need of how you need to even spec that truck is based off of what type of route you're running. What are you hauling? We kind of think in the industry of that we do mass customization really, really well of how we manufacture trucks, right?
Right.
When you go and you purchase a truck, you can choose any type of configuration, because that's important for how you are running your business. What are you hauling? A trucker making a decision of, I'm not going to buy this year because I need to make sure that this technology is proven before I go and make that investment. I need to make sure the performance requirements are there for this truck so that I feel confident that I'm going to have more up days than I am going to have downtime days. It's a lot of sitting down and understanding with regulators. This is how this industry proves technology. This is how it adopts technology. This is what's needed to make this all work. Because you make a very good point, John, if that we get this wrong, it's catastrophic for our industry. It's catastrophic for the country of just moving the supply chain. So we want regulations and legislation that are going to be set up for success here. And unfortunately, what we've been running into as of late is that it is definitely heading towards a one size fits all approach, mirroring a lot of what's happening in the light duty industry here, and thinking that electrification is going to be here tomorrow in our space. It's a completely different use case for us than it is for the light duty industry. And sitting down and really sharing those stories with regulators so that they understand how is this going to be successful here.
We're seeing rolling blackouts, right? So we understand that there's an overall power issue. There's more people in the country than there are, every year. There's more people, more power is going to be used. So if we can't provide and grow the power supply proactively ahead of trying to do this, then it is set up for failure at some level. Now, I think there are niches where the electric, would work, but that's a small percentage of our industry. It's not something you can legislate the whole industry on. Where if you're running regionally and and the temperature allows for it and the climate allows for it, you might be okay with an electric truck if your product isn't that heavy, right? So when you start looking about at how the trucks are spec'd and understanding you've got to carry a payload that's substantial, right? Right now, I think the average payload's between 43 and 46,000 pounds on an average over the road truck. Does that seem accurate to you too?
Yeah, it does. And as we continue to talk to EPA, it's a very diverse industry. Paul and I are working with EPA right now we're in active rulemaking on greenhouse gas phase 3. Probably listeners very much remember greenhouse gas phase 1. We're in the middle of greenhouse gas phase 2 now. We're now starting to look at regulations for model year 2027 and beyond. EPA is looking at 101 different vehicle classifications. That just tells you how diverse our industry is. A one-size-fits-all regulation is not going to work here. There are going to be different adoption rates here for technology. There are going to be different use cases. There's going to be different opportunities of where you can electrify. Where can we leverage? We just finalized a brand new emissions regulation with EPA at the end of last year for model year 2027. So where can we leverage that regulation for clean diesel technology that's already on the road, that's only going to get better here? And then also, as we look through as alternative fuels, what can we use today and leverage today to make sure, as we continue from a technology space, use a one-size-fits-all from an energy space here. There are things we can do that are kind of the low-hanging fruit to move a transition here. The trucking industry has a fantastic story to tell on the environmental side. We get beaten up a lot, but the industry has made tremendous strides on cleaning up their tailpipe emissions. We have been partners on most days, we are partners with our regulators because we want successful regulations here.
So where are we at versus the 80s then, Jacqueline, but from an emissions perspective on trucks?
So one truck from the 1980s emitted the same emissions as 60 trucks on the road today.
So it's 60 times better.
60 times better.
That's a big number.
We have reduced criteria pollutants, NOx emissions, particulate matter out of our tailpipe emissions of 99%.
60 times. Wow, that's incredible. I think we want to stop there, but I would like to have you on for next week also, because now you've really got my attention. And first off, Paul and Jacqueline, I can't thank you enough for being on, and we definitely want to continue this next week, okay? That's all right with you?
Sounds good.
Thank you for being on Stay in Your Lane.
Continue watching on the next episode of the Stay in Your Lane podcast.